Welcome to this lecture on stakeholder analysis. In this lecture, I'm going to use the public participation discussion that is going on in Kenya in matters competence-based curriculum. I will use that example to demonstrate that project management and stakeholder analysis are important in any project. Kenya's competence-based curriculum, the CBC. I'm saying it did not have a comprehensive stakeholder analysis. And when stakeholders do not read from the same script, it is the project that suffers. We saw on the advent of the CBC, key stakeholders, the Minister of Education, the Secretary General of the Union of Teachers, they were not talking to each other. They were not reading from the same script. It looked like they were at war. And when that happens, then the project will suffer. Yes, a problem was identified in Kenya's education system, which necessitated the design, piloting, and introduction of a new system of education, that is, the competence-based curriculum CBC in 2019. Now, that there was problem identification, design of a solution, pilot of the solution, and final introduction of the CBC means that CBC was first a project. The said problem affected or affects a number of categories of people and organizations in different measures. These people and organizations are collectively called stakeholders. Some are negatively affected, while others are positively affected. Therefore, a stakeholder is anybody, corporate or human, who is affected in one way or another by a project that can be negatively affected or positively affected. Now, best project management practices dictate that the success of a project, actually any project, depends on a number of things, including objective and comprehensive stakeholder analysis. Now, we've been hearing many complaints by some primary CBC stakeholders, that is, the direct beneficiaries or those directly impacted by CBC. Now, this complaining is a symptom. It is an indication that there was inadequate stakeholder involvement and perhaps there was too much top-down, pushing the CBC down the throats of some people. Let's just listen to some primary stakeholders and how they have failed.
CBC has come to help somehow, inasaidia, lakini kwa ukiangalia tu kwa undani haisaidii sana, because the demands that the teachers are making they are so exaggerated. Kama wanafunzi wanaambiwa walete vitu zenye hata wazazi hawawezi afford, wengine hawawezi afford, alafu wazazi wengine hawawezi pata hizo vitu kwa urahisi. Na ukiangalia vizuri, serikali it's not considering the parents who are coming from the ushago.
Kama inaweza kuendelea, lakini serikali ijue vile itaweza kupunguza gharama ya hizi vitu watoto wanatumia.
A good number of parents have raised concern that CBC is too demanding in terms of the physical involvement as well as the financial burden that comes with catering for the CBC activities and buying of books. Some parents have complained that getting time to be physically present and to help with homework is almost impossible.
Now, but even as the primary stakeholders complain, some key tertiary stakeholders who may not directly benefit, but they do influence the curriculum, have been seen to dismiss the complaining, sometimes arrogantly so.
These are some of the challenges that caused an uproar, with some parents calling upon the government to scrap off the CBC. However, Education Cabinet Secretary George Magoha said the implementation of the CBC will continue despite opposition from various stakeholders.
Don't waste your time singing politics on this side, and we are not listening to you.
And in a big speaking yesterday, Professor Magoha termed the critique of the new curriculum as malicious, asserting that the government is fully backing the execution of the CBC.
Actually, the people who are making noise should listen to this.
It came as a welcome move to many when President Ruto announced that public participation will be carried out to decide the fate of the already started CBC. Needless to say, many projects in Kenya and elsewhere failed due to inadequate adherence to the project cycle management practices. Now, let's listen to the President on CBC right from day one in office.
There is a robust conversation, ladies and gentlemen, in the country on education, and in particular, the implementation of CBC curriculum. Public participation is critical in this matter. I will establish an education reform task force in the presidency, which will be launched in the coming weeks. It will collect views from all players in line with the constitutional demand of public participation, and we are particularly alive to the anxieties of parents on the twin transition of the last 844 class and the first CBC class in January next year.
Yes, the issue of transition mentioned by the President is a critical one. The 844 system, which extended university life from 3 to 4 years for a degree and which is being replaced by CBC, hit a transition issue. I was at Kenyatta University in the economics department. We actually caught an ambush. Why? Having not fully participated as stakeholders in 844 matters, we had not developed a syllabus that will absorb the incoming 844 graduates. So 844 freshers came in, and what do? We simply stretched the 3-year syllabus to 4 years and continued with business as usual. Same methodologies, same content, but delivering it to people who have come in 2 or year less than usual. So, little wonder that some quarters complained about some 844 graduates being half-baked. Now, let's now use the CBC to demonstrate a stakeholder analysis. Virtually everybody, human and corporate, every citizen in a country is a stakeholder in education. Yes. But stakeholders may be positively affected or impacted by the project. There are also those who can be negatively impacted. Let's look at a basic stakeholder, mapping. Let's say that is our CBC, competence-based curriculum. The immediate surrounding this, the immediate impacted, the immediate beneficiary of CBC are what we call primary stakeholders, and they include the pupils, the parents, the teachers, guardians, students. Then the second layer, stakeholders, is secondary stakeholders. These are people indirectly affected by the CBC, and they may include the community, the suppliers, the NGOs, the employers. Yes, and we can see here, the unions may be both, depending on how you want to look at it, may be both primary stakeholders or secondary stakeholders. Then further off are the tertiary stakeholders, those who may not be directly affected, but the influence the goings on. These include donors, government, development partners, faith organization, and so on and so forth. Now, this mapping tells us that we need to analyze each category and see how the project is impacting on them, and even how we can involve them well in implementing the project. So, out of this mapping, we shall generate a matrix. Now, for the CBC, key stakeholder categories at different levels were not in agreement, as we have already seen. Some were talking at not to each other, which is not healthy for any project. A good stakeholder engagement should generate an analysis, a matrix, which should in turn generate strategies of involving all stakeholders in the implementation of the project. That way, success can be guaranteed. This is now the matrix, stakeholder analysis matrix. It has rows and columns. This is the stakeholder. We have the primary stakeholders who are the direct beneficiaries, directly impacted. And in matter CPC, they include the pupils, the parents, the teachers, the union, as we have seen already. Then the secondary stakeholders, those who are indirect beneficiaries or indirectly impacted by the project, like suppliers, employers, community. I'm just singling out one or two. Then the tertiary, that means the influencers. They may not necessarily be direct or indirect beneficiaries, but they influence what goes on. The government, the donors, the development partners. Now, having mapped out these stakeholders, and I'm saying this is not exhaustive, just an example. We now come to see what impact, the project has on them. Is it high, medium, low? By knowing the impact on the stakeholders, it also guides us. It will guide us on how to engage them. So you can see, like, the CBC has a very high impact on pupils, a very high impact on parents, but will have very low impact on donors and so on. So we categorize them. And then we come, how does the stakeholder influence that project? You can see pupils, very low influence. They're just there to receive. They are on the receiving end. Parents, low to medium. Well, if the parents come together as parents association, the influence can increase. But single parents, the influence is very low. Teachers, the same. Unions, medium influence, may not be the final, but there is an influence, and so on and so forth. The government is a very high influence. Then, what is important to the stakeholder? What does the stakeholder get from the project? For the pupils, singling out just one, they want the skills. Of course, competencies in this matter. The parents want their children to succeed. The teachers want the pupils to succeed. The union wants their teachers to be satisfied. The suppliers, they want business. Employers, they want competent graduates, not half-baked. The community, they want good citizens in the community. The government want national growth using those good graduates. Donors, they have their own objectives, donor objectives, partner objectives. So we can see now that when we see that everybody, every stakeholder, has what it takes, or rather has something to take from the project, then it makes sense that no stakeholder should be left out in matters analyzing and introducing it. So we shall come now how the stakeholder could contribute to the project. Pupils, yes, they can contribute. They have their personal likes and the personal dislikes. Subject that I like, subject that I don't like. All these can, contribute to the project. Parents, resources. It's the parents who have been complaining about having no resources to run this CBC. Teachers, curriculum implementation. Unions, teacher management. Suppliers, the resources, of course. Employers, again, employment openings. That is how they can contribute to the project. The community can be watchdog to what's going on with these students and all that. The government policy, they will introduce, or rather, they can have a policy, contribute policy to the project. Donors, financial resources, and so forth. Development partners. Now, having done all this, we can now be in a position to say, what strategy can we put in place to engage these stakeholders in our project? Like, students could be interview them what they like and what they don't like, how has been school and all. That will tell us now how to shape the future of the school to capture the interest of the students. That is a strategy. Parents, we can engage them in workshops. Teachers, we can engage them in training. Of course, CBC training, but again, probably a hurried training. Unions, workshops, and these are areas where we saw the Secretary General of the Union was not, we can call them almost at loggerheads with the ministry. The workshops were not carried out harmoniously. Suppliers, yes, we can have them also in workshops. So workshops could be strategies. Stakeholder workshops could be strategies, not selected few, but as comprehensive as possible. The community, we have community baranzas, we can also engage the community. Government workshops. Donors, we can strategies to write proposals, perhaps proposals, or whatever necessary policies, financial proposals, and so on and so forth. So, as much as possible, we need to engage, to analyze stakeholders, take what they have to contribute to the project, and then find out strategies that we can use to engage them. That will minimize complaints, will increase satisfaction, and therefore everybody owns the project. I sincerely hope a comprehensive stakeholder analysis will be carried out after the public participation that has been called by the President to help implement CBC. I believe CBC will contribute immensely to the youth employment situation, among other things. Elsewhere in my other videos on this channel, I have said I introduced a version of CBC 20 or so years ago at university, and a number of my students started own businesses while still on campus. You can spot some of them on this YouTube channel. Yes, thank you for watching, and please subscribe, share, like, comment.